Welcome to Wonderland, the podcast where I go down the rabbit hole to research things you may be curious about. My name is Ami, and I'll be your guide on this trip to Wonderland.
Hi there, my Wonderlings. As we prepare for our Halloween episode this year, I'm releasing one episode a day for 13 days. The first 12 episodes are short ghost stories for you to enjoy, and the 13th episode will be the Halloween episode, in which we'll go down a rabbit hole that will make you wonder what things go bump in the night.
I wonder.
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 The story you're about to hear is from Very Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by D.S. Murphy. You can read this story and many more on urbanepics.com. These are short, easy, spine-tingling tales that are fun to tell around a campfire or in the dark, if you're not too scared. The Well. In the heart of a small, isolated village stood an ancient well, its stone walls worn smooth by centuries of use. The well was the village's lifeblood, providing water for drinking, cooking, and washing. But it was more than just a source of water. It was the center of a dark legend that the villagers spoke of only in hushed tones. A tale passed down through generations. The legend told of a creature that lived at the bottom of the well. A monstrous being that fed on the souls of those who dared to draw water after dark. The villagers took the legend seriously, for there had been disappearances over the years. People who'd ventured to the well after sunset and were never seen from again. The well was always sealed at dusk, its heavy wooden lid firmly in place, and no one was allowed to approach it until the sun rose again. But, as with all legends, there were those who didn't believe, who dismissed the stories as nothing more than old superstitions. Jacob was one of those people. A stubborn, headstrong boy of 15, he scoffed at the idea of a creature living in the well. He had drawn water from it countless times, and nothing had ever happened to him. To him, the warnings were nothing but the ramblings of old men and women clinging the past. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the village settled into the quiet of night, Jacob's mother asked him to fetch water from the well. She had been busy all day, and there was no water left for the evening meal. Jacob hesitated for a moment, glancing out the window at the gathering darkness. But then he shrugged off his unease. The well was just a well, and he wasn't afraid of some made-up creature. Grabbing the empty jug, Jacob headed out into the cool evening air. The village was silent, the only sound the soft rustling of the wind through the trees. The sky was a deep purple, the last rays of sunlight fading as stars began to twinkle overhead. The well stood at the center of the village, its old stones glowing faintly in the dim light. As Jacob approached, he felt a slight chill, but he ignored it, focusing instead on the task at hand. He set the jug down beside the well and lifted the heavy wooden lid, grunting with the effort. The air inside the well was cool and damp, carrying the faint, earthy scent of wet stone. Jacob tied the bucket to the rope and lowered it into the well, listening to the creak of the rope as it descended into darkness. The bucket hit the water with a soft splash, and Jacob began to crank it back up, his thoughts wandering as he worked. But as the bucket neared the top, he heard something. Faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. A low, gurgling sound, like the bubbling of water deep below. Jacob paused, frowning, but then he shook his head. It was probably just the water echoing off the walls of the well. He pulled the bucket up the rest of the way and filled the jug, but as he leaned over to close the lid, he caught a glimpse of movement in the darkness below. His heart skipped a beat, and he leaned closer, peering down into the well. The water was calm, reflecting the stars overhead, but as he watched, ripples began to spread across the surface. Something was moving down there. Something large and slow, rising from the depths. Jacob's breath caught in his throat as the creature emerged from the water. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a grotesque slimy mass of twisted flesh and sinew, its body glistening with moisture. Long arms reached out from its sides, ending in clawed, webbed fingers. Its face was a nightmare, its eyes glowing with sickly green light, its mouth a gaping maw filled with sharp, jagged teeth. The creature stared up at Jacob, its eyes locked onto his, and it spoke in a voice that sounded like the bubbling of the water, deep and resonant.
I have been waiting for you.
It whispered, its words sending a chill down Jacob's spine.
I am hungry, and you must feed me.
Terror gripped Jacob as the creature's arms shot out, wrapping around his legs and pulling him closer to the edge. He struggled, kicking and clawing at the stones, but the creature's grip was too strong. It dragged him towards the dark, gaping mouth of the well, its cold, wet body wrapping around him like a snake. Jacob tried to scream, but the sound was lost in the gurgling roar of the creature as it pulled him down into the well. The darkness swallowing him whole, the cold water closing over his head, and the creature dragged him deeper, deeper, deeper into the abyss. The last thing Jacob heard was the echo of his own screams bouncing off the stone walls, before everything went silent. The villagers heard the screams too, echoing through the night, and they rushed to the well, torches in hand. But when they arrived, it was too late. The water in the well had turned a deep crimson red, and the wooden bucket floated on the surface, empty. The creature was gone, vanished back into the depths, leaving no trace of Jacob behind. In the days that followed, the village elders decided to seal the well for good, covering it with heavy stones and warning the villagers to never speak of it again. But the legend of the creature lived on, whispered among the children who dared to pass by the well at night. They said the creature still lived at the bottom of the well, waiting for the next soul to draw water after dark. And in the dead of night, if you stood close enough, you could still hear the faint gurgling sound coming from deep below, the sound of the creature stirring, hungry, and waiting for its next victim.
The preceding podcast is solely owned by its host or hosts and is distributed by Big Media LLC. Copyright 2025, all rights reserved.